The spring sun beat down mercilessly on Dust Hollow, sending waves of heat shimmering across the cracked earth. Red dust devils danced between the weathered buildings, carrying the scent of sage and desperation. Cole Wilder pulled his black stallion to a stop outside what could barely be called a dwelling, more a collection of rotting boards held together by stubborn nails and false hope. He dismounted slowly, his spurs jingling against the hard-packed dirt. At 38, Cole cut an imposing figure in his leather chaps and dust-covered hat. His weathered face bore the marks of a man who'd built an empire from sweat and determination, transforming a modest inheritance into one of the largest cattle operations in the Arizona Territory. The makeshift door hung crooked on its hinges. Cole knocked twice, the sound hollow against the thin wood. "Silas Hart," he called out, his voice carrying the authority of a man accustomed to being heard. "Time we settled accounts." A crash came from within, followed by cursing. The door swung open to reveal Silas Hart, a man who looked 20 years older than his 45 years. His bloodshot eyes darted nervously, and the stench of cheap whiskey rolled off him in waves. "Wilder," Silas spat into the dust. "Figured you'd show up eventually." 6 months. "Silas, that was our agreement." Cole pulled a worn ledger from his saddlebag. $200, plus the deed to that water claim you put up as collateral. Time to pay. Silas's face contorted with rage. "I ain't got your money." "Then I'll take the water rights, as agreed." "That claim ain't worth spit," Silas snarled. "Just some fool map my daddy left me. Never found nothing but dry rock." "A deal's a deal." Movement in the shadows caught Cole's eye. A young woman emerged from the gloom of the shack's interior, and despite the dire surroundings, she moved with quiet dignity. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple braid, and her patched dress had been mended with careful stitches. But it was her eyes that held Cole's attention, green as spring grass, defiant despite the purple bruise darkening her left cheekbone. "Pa, please." Her voice was soft but steady. "Let me speak with Mr. Wilder." "Shut your mouth, Lila." Silas backhanded her across the face, sending her stumbling. Cole moved without thinking, catching her arm before she fell. The girl she couldn't be more than 18 or 19 straightened immediately, pulling away from his touch with practiced wariness. "There's no call for that," Cole said, his voice low and dangerous. Silas laughed, an ugly sound. "She's mine to discipline as I see fit, though she ain't worth much. Can't cook proper, too proud to know her place." His eyes glinted with sudden cunning. "But maybe we could work something out." Cole's jaw tightened. "State your terms." "The girl—" Silas jerked his thumb at Lila. "Take her instead of the money. She can work your ranch, earn off the debt. Hell, she's young enough, pretty enough despite her stubborn streak. Make you a decent wife if you've a mind for it." The silence stretched taut as a hangman's rope. Lila stood frozen, her face carefully blank, but Cole saw her hands tremble before she clasped them together. "You're offering your daughter as payment." Cole's voice could have frozen water in July. "She's 18, old enough, and it ain't like she's doing me any good here." Silas scratched his stubbled jaw. "Take her or take nothing. That's my offer." "I won't be traded like livestock," Lila said quietly, but there was steel beneath the words. Silas raised his hand again, but Cole stepped between them. "Touch her again, and debt or no debt, I'll lay you out in this dust." The older man backed down, but his eyes remained cruel. "Then what'll it be, Wilder? The girl or nothing?" Cole looked at Lila, really looked at her. Beneath the bruises and the worn dress was a young woman holding herself with remarkable composure given the circumstances. Her chin was raised, meeting his gaze directly, not pleading, not hoping, just waiting to see what kind of man he was. "Miss Hart," Cole said formally, "I won't be party to trading human beings for debt. You're not property to be bartered." Something flickered in her eyes, surprise, perhaps, or disappointment. He couldn't tell which. "However," he continued, turning back to Silas. Your daughter could work at my ranch if she chooses. Proper wages, fair treatment. She'd earn enough to pay your debt in time. But it would be her choice, not yours. I don't need your charity, Lila said. It's not charity, it's employment. Cole kept his voice neutral. My daughter Charlotte needs someone to help with her care and education. The work's hard but honest. You'd have your own quarters, same as any of my hands. Silas snorted. Quarters? Right. We all know what kind of work a young woman does on a ranch full of men. The crack of Cole's fist against Silas's jaw was sharp as a gunshot. The older man crashed back against the doorframe, blood streaming from his nose. I'll say this once, Cole said evenly. Any woman under my protection is treated with respect. Always. That includes your daughter. Should she accept my offer? Lila knelt beside her father, pressing a rag to his bloody nose despite the way he cursed and pushed at her. The tenderness in the gesture, after everything Cole had witnessed, struck him deeply. Why? She asked without looking up. Why offer me anything at all? Because everyone deserves a choice about their own life, Cole said simply. She stood slowly, studying him with those remarkable green eyes. And if I refuse? Then I'll pursue the debt through legal channels. The sheriff can sort it out. The sheriff? Silas laughed bitterly from the ground. He'd love nothing better than to throw me in that jail of his. Let me rot while my daughter starves. Pa, don't. What's it matter? Silas struggled to his feet, swaying. You're useless here anyway. Can't even keep a simple house proper. Might as well go whore yourself to pay my debts. The words hung poisonous in the air. Lila's face went pale, then flushed with shame and anger. She turned away, but not before Cole saw tears threaten to spill. Miss Hart, Cole said gently, the offer stands. Fair wages, honest work, and respect, that's all. She looked between her father and Cole, weighing invisible scales. The shack groaned in the wind, and somewhere a crow cawed mockingly. Finally, she walked to a corner and pulled out a small cloth bundle, her worldly possessions. Cole realized with a pang. I'll work for you, she said quietly. But I pay my own debts, not his, and I keep my own wages after. Agreed. Ungrateful bitch. Silas lunged for her, but Cole caught him easily, shoving him back. The debt transfers to your daughter, Cole said coldly. But if I see you near my ranch, or if you try to interfere with her in any way, I'll have you brought up on charges. Understood. Silas spat again but nodded sullenly. Cole turned to Lila, who stood clutching her bundle with white knuckles. Her chin was up again, that stubborn pride refusing to bend even now. He found himself respecting her for it. My horse can carry two, he said carefully, unless you'd prefer to walk. She considered this, then shook her head. I'll walk. I'm used to it. It's 15 miles to my ranch. I said I'll walk. Cole nearly smiled at her stubbornness, but kept his expression neutral. He went to his saddlebags and pulled out a canteen, offering it to her. At least take water. The sun's brutal today. She accepted it after a moment's hesitation. Their fingers brushed in the transfer, and Cole noted how she didn't flinch away this time. They left the shack as the sun reached its zenith. Cole led his horse, matching his pace to Lila's determined stride. Neither looked back at Silas, who stood in the doorway shouting obscenities that the wind mercifully carried away. After a mile of silence, Lila spoke. Why didn't you just take the water rights? Maybe I will, eventually. But that's business between your father and me. And I'm not business. Cole glanced at her, noting how she'd already drunk half the canteen, despite trying to ration it. No, Miss Hart, you're not business. You're a person who needed a way out. I offered one. People will talk, she said flatly. They'll say you bought me. Let them talk. We know the truth. She walked in silence for another moment. Your daughter, Charlotte. How old is she? 5. Lost her mother 2 years back to fever. I'm sorry. She's a good child, bright, curious, needs someone with patience. I haven't much experience with children. You'll learn if you're willing. The sun beat down relentlessly. After another 2 miles, Cole noticed Lila stumbling slightly, though she tried to hide it, without comment. He stopped to rest in the shade of a large boulder, pretending to check his horse's hooves. Mr. Wilder, Lila said suddenly, that water claim, is it really worthless? Cole straightened, considering his answer. Your father thinks so, but water's more valuable than gold out here. Even the possibility of it is worth something. Worth $200. Worth whatever someone's willing to pay or trade for it. She absorbed this silently. When they resumed walking, Cole noticed she stayed closer to him, though whether for shade or security, he couldn't say. The ranch came into view as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Wilder Ranch sprawled across the valley like a small town, the main house. Bunkhouses, barns, corrals, and various outbuildings all arranged with practical efficiency. It's bigger than I expected, Lila said softly. Started with less than your father has now, Cole replied. Built it up over 15 years. A small figure burst from the main house, running toward them with ribbons streaming from her dark hair. Papa's home. Charlotte Wilder was a whirlwind of energy, launching herself at Cole's legs. He scooped her up easily, and she wrapped her arms around his neck, chattering about her day. Then she noticed Lila, and her chatter stopped abruptly. Who's that? Papa. This is Miss Hart, Charlotte. She's come to help take care of you. Charlotte studied Lila with the frank curiosity of a 5-year-old. She's pretty, but sad. Why is she sad? Papa. Charlotte, Cole said gently. Mind your manners. Lila stepped forward, offering a small smile. Hello, Charlotte. That's a lovely ribbon in your hair. The child brightened. Mrs. Murphy gave it to me. She's the cook. Do you like ribbons? I have lots. I do like ribbons. I can share. Charlotte wriggled down from her father's arms and grabbed Lila's hand, apparently deciding the matter was settled. Come on, I'll show you. Cole watched his daughter tow Lila toward the house, noting how the young woman instinctively gentled her pace to match the child's shorter legs. Perhaps this arrangement would work out after all. Boss Jake Morrison, his foreman, jogged over from the barn. Everything all right? Saw you walking in. Fine. Jake, Miss Hart will be staying on to help with Charlotte. Set her up in the room next to the kitchen, the one with the lock on the inside. Jake's eyebrows rose slightly, but he nodded. Yes, sir. I'll let the boys know to mind their manners. See that they do. Cole's tone left no room for misunderstanding. Anyone gives her trouble, they answer to me. As Cole headed for the house, he caught sight of Lila kneeling in the dirt, carefully tying one of Charlotte's ribbons that had come loose. The setting sun caught her hair, turning it to burnished copper, and for a moment she looked younger than her 18 years, vulnerable in a way her stubborn pride usually masked. He'd offered her sanctuary and work, nothing more. But watching Charlotte's delighted laughter as Lila fashioned the ribbon into a bow, Cole wondered if he'd invited more change into their lives than he'd bargained for. The door to the main house stood open, letting out the warm smell of bread and stew. Charlotte's voice carried on the evening air, excitedly telling Lila about every room. Cole paused on the threshold, looking back at the road they'd traveled. Somewhere behind them, Silas Hart was probably already drunk again, cursing his fate and his daughter equally. But here, in this moment, a young woman was being offered something she'd likely never had: respect, fair treatment, and a chance to earn her own way in the world. Papa, Charlotte called from inside. Miss Lila's hungry. Can she eat with us? Cole stepped inside. Decision made. Set another place at the table. Charlotte, Miss Hart is part of the household now." As he watched Lila help Charlotte set the table, the child chattering non-stop while Lila listened with patient attention, Cole realized the full weight of what he'd done. He'd brought change into their carefully ordered world, disrupted the quiet rhythm of their grief. But perhaps, he thought as Charlotte's laughter filled the room, perhaps that wasn't such a bad thing after all. The rooster's crow pierced the pre-dawn darkness, but Lila was already awake. She'd barely slept in the small room beside the kitchen, not from discomfort, but from the strange luxury of a real bed with clean sheets and a door that locked from the inside. After years of sleeping light, ready to dodge her father's drunken rages, the safety felt almost oppressive. She dressed quickly in her spare dress, fingers working the familiar patches. Today she'd begin earning her keep, proving she was worth more than the harsh words her father had spat. The kitchen was dark when she entered, but she found the matches and lit a lamp, surveying her new domain. "Early riser. Mrs." Murphy's voice made her jump. The cook, a sturdy woman in her 50s, stood in the doorway with approval in her eyes. "Good. Makes two of us. Fire needs starting if we're to feed this lot." Lila set to work without being asked twice, loading kindling into the massive stove. "Mrs." Murphy watched her work, nodding slightly. "You've done this before." "Yes, ma'am." "Just Murphy is fine. We don't stand much on ceremony in the kitchen." The older woman began pulling supplies from the pantry. 20 men to feed, plus the family. Hope you're not afraid of hard work." "No, Ma Murphy, I'm not." They worked in companionable silence, Lila following Murphy's lead in preparing biscuits, bacon, and beans. The familiar rhythm of cooking soothed her nerves, and by the time the sun painted the eastern sky pink, the kitchen smelled like heaven. The ranch hands filed in as the triangle rang, rough men with sun-weathered faces and calloused hands. Lila kept her eyes down, serving coffee and plates with quick efficiency. She felt their stares, heard the sudden hush in conversation, but no one spoke to her directly. Until Boyd Kincaid arrived. The foreman sauntered in late, his dark eyes immediately finding Lila. Tall and lean, with black hair slicked back with pomade. Boyd had the look of a man who thought highly of himself. His gaze traveled over her slowly, a smile playing at his lips. "Well, well, what have we here?" "Miss Hart is helping with the household," Murphy said firmly. "Mind your manners, Boyd." "Always do." He slid into a chair, eyes never leaving Lila. "Miss Hart, is it Silas Hart's girl?" Lila set his plate down without comment, but Boyd caught her wrist. Not hard, but firm enough to stop her retreat. "Heard your daddy traded you for his debts. That true?" "Let go!" Her voice was steady despite her racing heart. "Just making conversation." His thumb stroked her wrist. Friendly-like. "Boyd." Cole's voice cut through the kitchen like a whip. He stood in the doorway, Charlotte's hand in his, expression carved from stone. "Release Miss Hart. Now." Boyd's hand dropped immediately. "Just welcoming the new help, boss." "Miss Hart is under my protection. That means she's treated with the same respect you'd show my daughter. Are we clear?" "Crystal." Boyd's smile didn't reach his eyes. Cole's gaze swept the room, meeting each man's eyes in turn. "That goes for everyone. Any man who forgets his manners will be looking for new employment, without references." Murmurs of "yes, sir" rippled through the room. Lila resumed serving, but her hands trembled slightly. Charlotte broke the tension by announcing loudly that Miss Leela had promised to teach her to braid hair after breakfast. The meal concluded quickly after that, the men filing out to their duties. Boyd lingered, shooting Lila a look that made her skin crawl before Cole's steady stare sent him on his way. "You all right?" Cole asked quietly when they were alone, except for Murphy and Charlotte. "Fine, sir, thank you." "It's Cole, and you don't need to thank me for basic decency." He lifted Charlotte into her chair. Eat something. You barely touched supper last night. Lila found herself seated at the family table, Charlotte chattering beside her while Cole read through correspondence. It felt surreal, this moment of domestic normalcy after yesterday's upheaval. Miss Lila, will you walk me to see the horses? Charlotte asked through a mouthful of biscuit. Papa says I can't go alone, but you could come. Charlotte, don't talk with your mouth full. Cole corrected gently, and Miss Hart has work to do. Actually, Lila said, if it's all right, I could take her after we clean up from breakfast. She could show me around the ranch. Charlotte bounced in her seat. Please, Papa. If Miss Hart doesn't mind. Cole's expression softened when he looked at his daughter. But you mind her. Understand, and stay away from the stallion paddock. The morning passed in a blur of dishes, laundry, and Charlotte's endless energy. The child was a delight curious, affectionate, and remarkably well-spoken for her age. She showed Lila every corner of the ranch, from the chicken coops to the vegetable garden Murphy kept. Mama planted those roses, Charlotte said, pointing to a climbing plant on the side of the house. Papa takes care of them now. He gets sad sometimes when he looks at them, but he says they're too pretty to let die. Lila's heart ached for both father and daughter. They are beautiful. Your mama had good taste. She smelled like roses. I remember that. Charlotte's small face scrunched in concentration. Do you think I'll forget what she looked like? I think, Lila said carefully, that the important parts of people stay with us, how they made us feel, the love they gave us. That doesn't fade. Charlotte slipped her hand into Lila's, apparently satisfied with this answer. They were returning to the house when they encountered a group of ranch hands by the water trough. Boyd stood among them, and his voice carried clearly. Daddy probably sampled the goods before selling. You know how those types are. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, if you catch my meaning. The men shifted uncomfortably, some moving away, but a few chuckled. Lila's steps faltered, heat flooding her face. Charlotte looked up at her, confused. What goods? What's he mean? Miss Lila. Nothing important. Sweetheart, come on, let's... Going somewhere. Boyd stepped into their path, that oily smile back in place. Just telling the boys how lucky we are to have such a hard-working addition to the ranch. Please move, Lila said quietly. No need to be unfriendly. We're all going to be seeing a lot of each other. He leaned closer, voice dropping. Might as well get acquainted proper. I could make things easier for you here. Or harder. Your choice. Mr. Boyd's being mean, Charlotte announced loudly. I don't like it. I'm telling Papa. Boyd's face darkened. Now, little miss, no need for... Charlotte's right. Jake Morrison appeared as if from nowhere, positioning himself between Boyd and the women. Boss wouldn't like hearing you're bothering Miss Hart, or scaring his daughter. Nobody's scaring anyone, Boyd said, but he stepped back, just being neighborly. Be neighborly somewhere else, Jake suggested mildly. Ladies, I'll walk you back to the house. Lila gratefully accepted the escort, Charlotte still clutching her hand tightly. At the door, Jake tipped his hat. Boyd's got a mean streak, he said quietly. Stay clear of him when you can. And if he gives you real trouble, you tell me or the boss. Don't try to handle it alone. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Jake's fine. And ma'am, for what it's worth, most of us don't hold with Boyd's kind of talk. You're doing good work here. Charlotte hasn't smiled this much in months. The kindness in his weathered face nearly undid her composure. She managed a nod before ushering Charlotte inside. The afternoon brought new challenges. Word of the new arrangement had already reached town, and when Murphy sent Lila to the general store for supplies, the whispers followed her like dust devils. That's her, a woman hissed to her companion. The Hart girl. Living at the Wilder Ranch now? Shameful, the other replied. That poor little Charlotte, exposed to such influences. Heard her father offered her up like a... The woman caught Lila looking and sniffed disdainfully. Well, we all know what kind of arrangement that is. Lila kept her head high, focusing on her list. The store owner, Mr. Garrett, at least conducted business without comment, though his wife watched from behind the counter with pursed lips. Loading the supplies into the wagon, Lila was startled when someone touched her shoulder. She spun, expecting trouble, but found a woman about Murphy's age with kind eyes and worn hands. You're the Hart girl. It wasn't a question. Yes, ma'am. I'm Agnes Fletcher. I lead the women's prayer circle. She glanced around, then leaned closer. I knew your mother before she passed. Good woman, deserved better than what life gave her. Lila's throat tightened. Thank you. You've got her spine. I can see that. Don't let the gossips get to you. This town loves its scandals, but they blow over. Agnes pressed something into Lila's hand, a small wooden cross. If you need anything, or just want someone to talk to, I'm at the parsonage. The unexpected kindness left Lila shaky as she drove back to the ranch. She'd grown so accustomed to harsh words and harsher hands that simple human decency felt foreign. Dinner that evening was a quieter affair. Cole had taken supper in his study, reviewing ledgers, and most of the hands were out checking the far pastures. Lila served those present without incident, though she felt Boyd's eyes following her movements. After Charlotte was bathed and tucked into bed insisting Lila tell her a story about a brave princess who tamed wild horses, Lila found herself alone in the kitchen with her mending. The house settled around her with creaks and sighs, and for the first time all day, she allowed herself to truly breathe. Long day. She looked up to find Cole in the doorway, sleeves rolled up and collar loosened. He looked tired, but less formal than she'd yet seen him. No longer than usual, she replied, focusing on her stitching. Mind if I... He gestured to the coffee pot. It's your kitchen, Mr. Cole. He poured 2 cups without asking, setting one before her. They sat in surprisingly comfortable silence, the only sound the pop of the dying fire and the whisper of thread through fabric. Charlotte's taken to you, he said eventually. She's easy to like. Not everyone thinks so. Her last governess called her willful and unmanageable. Lila snorted softly. She's 5, and smart. That's not the same as unmanageable. No, Cole agreed, a smile ghosting his lips. It's not. He studied his coffee. I heard there was some unpleasantness in town. Heat crept up her neck. Nothing I can't handle. And with Boyd, her needle stilled. Jake intervened. It's fine. It's not. His voice carried quiet steel. But I'll deal with Boyd. You shouldn't have to. I've dealt with worse, she said before she could stop herself. The silence stretched, weighted with unspoken understanding. Finally. Cole stood. You're safe here. Lila, I want you to know that whatever you've dealt with before, it stops at my gate. She looked up, meeting his steady gaze. Why do you care? Because someone should have, long before now. He paused at the door. Good night, Miss Hart. Good night, Cole. Alone again. Lila touched the wooden cross in her pocket, thinking of her mother, of Agnes Fletcher's kindness, of Charlotte's trust and Cole's quiet protection. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd found a place where she could be more than Silas Hart's worthless daughter. Outside, a coyote howled at the rising moon, but the sound didn't frighten her. The solid walls of the Wilder house stood firm against the night. And tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight, she was safe. And that was enough. The morning after Boyd's confrontation dawned crisp and clear. Cole stood before the assembled ranch hands in the main yard. his expression carved from granite. The men shifted uneasily, sensing trouble in their boss's rigid stance. "Gentlemen," Cole began, his voice carrying across the dusty ground. "Seems some of you need reminding about the standards of behavior expected on this ranch." Boyd lounged against a fence post, attempting nonchalance, but Lila noticed the tension in his shoulders. She watched from the kitchen window, Charlotte beside her on a stool, both drawn by the unusual gathering. "Any man who works for me treats every person on this property with respect," Cole continued. "That includes Miss Hart. I hear one more report of inappropriate behavior, harassment, or crude talk, and the guilty party will be sent packing, without pay, without references." "Come on, boss," Boyd drawled. "Boys will talk. No harm meant." Cole's gaze locked onto his foreman. "Boyd, you're relieved of indoor privileges. Take your meals with the crew in the bunkhouse from now on, and the liquor rations are cut off for the next month." A murmur ran through the men. Liquor rations were a prized benefit, especially with the nearest saloon a day's ride away. "That's hardly fair." "Would you prefer to find employment elsewhere?" Cole's tone could have frozen whiskey. "Because that can be arranged." Boyd's jaw worked, but he stayed silent. "Any questions?" When none came, Cole nodded. "Good. Get to work." As the men dispersed, Lila saw Cole glance toward the kitchen window. Their eyes met briefly before she stepped back, heart racing for reasons she didn't want to examine. "Papa was angry," Charlotte observed solemnly. "He doesn't get angry much." "He was protecting us," Lila said softly. "Like when he shot that rattlesnake near my swing." "Something like that." That afternoon, Cole surprised everyone by joining them for the midday meal. Usually, he ate in his study or out with the men, but there he sat at the head of the kitchen table, Charlotte beaming at his presence. "Miss Lila's teaching me to write my letters better," Charlotte announced. "Want to see?" "After we eat, sweetheart." Lila served in silence, hyper-aware of Cole's presence. When she reached for his empty plate, their hands brushed. The contact lasted only a moment, but she felt it like a brand. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For this morning, for Charlotte, for everything." She met his eyes, seeing something there that made her pulse quicken. "Just doing my job." "No," he said firmly. "You're doing much more than that." Murphy chose that moment to bustle in with fresh bread, breaking the charged moment. But throughout the meal, Lila felt Cole's gaze returning to her, thoughtful and intense. As the days settled into routine, Lila found her place in the rhythm of ranch life. She rose before dawn to help Murphy, tended to Charlotte's needs, mended clothes, and managed household tasks with quiet efficiency. The work was hard but satisfying, and Charlotte's affection grew daily. One evening, a week after the confrontation with Boyd, Charlotte developed a fever. Nothing serious, Murphy assured them. Just a childhood ailment. But Cole hovered anxiously while Lila sat by the child's bedside, cooling her forehead with damp cloths. "Mama used to sing when I was sick," Charlotte mumbled, half asleep. Lila hesitated, then began humming a lullaby her own mother had sung years ago. Charlotte's restless movements stilled, her breathing evening out. "Don't stop," Cole said from the doorway. "Please." So Lila sang softly, old songs of home and comfort, while Cole maintained his vigil from across the room. As the night deepened, he moved closer, finally settling in the chair beside her. "My wife, Mary, she had a beautiful voice," he said quietly. "Charlotte favors her in looks, but she got my stubborn streak." "Tell me about her," Lila ventured. "If you don't mind." Cole was silent so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "She was the school teacher in Tucson when I met her. Proper Eastern education. Could have married anyone. But she chose a rough cowboy with big dreams and calloused hands. She saw who you really were. Maybe, or maybe she saw who I could become. He brushed a strand of hair from Charlotte's fevered face. She made me want to be better. Built this ranch together, side by side. When the fever took her, his voice roughened. I thought I'd die too, would have, except for Charlotte. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. He looked at Lila then, lamplight catching the gold flecks in his brown eyes. You're good with her, natural. I helped raise the neighbor children back home, before... She trailed off. Before your father's drinking got worse. She nodded, surprised by his perception. Mama's death broke something in him, or maybe it just revealed what was always there. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me to be strong. Strength shouldn't require suffering. The simple statement hit her unexpectedly hard. She blinked against sudden tears, focusing on Charlotte's peaceful face. Cole's hand covered hers on the blanket, warm and calloused and gentle. You're safe here, Lila. I meant what I said. Whatever you've endured, it's over. Nothing's ever really over, she whispered. The past has a way of finding you. Then we'll face it together. The word together hung in the air between them, weighted with promise. Lila didn't pull her hand away, allowing herself this moment of connection, of possibility. Charlotte's fever broke near dawn, and with it, the spell. Cole withdrew his hand, standing stiffly. I should check on the morning crew, he said, not meeting her eyes. Of course, but he paused at the door. Thank you for staying with her, for the songs. Always, Lila replied, meaning it. The next evening brought an unexpected visitor. Lila was helping Charlotte practice her letters when hoofbeats announced a rider. Through the window, she saw a woman dismounting elegant even in traveling clothes, with golden hair pinned in elaborate coils. Aunt Victoria, Charlotte shrieked, abandoning her slate to race outside. Lila followed more slowly, watching as the woman embraced Charlotte with theatrical flair. My darling niece, how you've grown. Victoria's gaze found Lila, sharpening with interest. And who might this be? I'm Lila Hart, ma'am. I help with the household. Indeed. Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. How practical. Cole emerged from the barn, his expression carefully neutral. Victoria, this is unexpected. Can't a woman visit her dear brother-in-law? She glided forward, pressing a kiss to Cole's cheek that lingered a beat too long. It's been far too long. Dinner that night was an exercise in discomfort. Victoria dominated the conversation, reminiscing about Mary while shooting veiled looks at Lila. She insisted on sitting beside Cole, touching his arm frequently, laughing at memories that excluded everyone else. Poor Cole. She sighed dramatically. Managing this enormous ranch alone. If only Mary could see how you struggle. I manage fine, Cole said curtly. Of course you do, but surely Charlotte needs a woman's influence. A proper lady to guide her. Her gaze flicked dismissively over Lila. Someone of appropriate standing. Miss Lila teaches me letters and numbers. Charlotte piped up loyally. And she tells the best stories. How quaint. Victoria's smile could have curdled milk. Though I'm sure your dear mother would have wanted something more refined for your education. Perhaps a finishing school back east. Charlotte stays here, Cole said firmly. Of course, I only want what's best for our family. Victoria leaned closer to Cole, voice dropping intimately. Mary would have wanted... Don't. Cole's voice was sharp enough to cut. Don't presume to speak for my wife. An uncomfortable silence fell. Lila rose quietly. I'll clear the dishes. I'll help, Charlotte scrambled after her, clearly eager to escape the tension. In the kitchen, Charlotte whispered. I don't like when Aunt Victoria visits. She makes Papa sad. Family can be complicated, Lila said carefully. She's not really my aunt. She was Mama's friend from school, but she always acts like... Charlotte frowned, searching for words. Like she wants to be my mama now. Lila's hand stilled on the dishes. Through the doorway, she could see Victoria leaning close to Cole, speaking earnestly. His body language screamed discomfort, but Victoria seemed oblivious. Your papa loved your mama very much, Lila said finally. No one could replace her. I know, but sometimes I wish... Charlotte bit her lip. Never mind. What, sweetheart? Sometimes I wish he'd smile more, like he does when you're around. Lila's heart clenched. I'm sure he smiles for you all the time. Different smiles, Charlotte said with 5-year-old wisdom. His real smile is just for you. Before Lila could process this, Victoria swept into the kitchen. Charlotte, darling, why don't you show me your room? I brought presents from San Francisco. Charlotte looked torn between politeness and loyalty. Lila nodded encouragingly. Go on, I'll finish here. Alone with Victoria, the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Miss Hart, was it? Victoria's tone could have etched glass. Might I speak plainly? Of course. I don't know what arrangement you have with Cole, but I know your type. Young, pretty, playing on a widower's loneliness. She stepped closer, perfume cloying in the small space. Mary was my dearest friend. I won't see her memory tarnished by some opportunistic girl. I'm here to work, nothing more. Please, I see how you look at him. How he looks at you. Victoria's smile was sharp as a blade. But you should know Cole and I have an understanding. When a proper mourning period passes, we'll marry. It's what Mary would have wanted, keeping the family together. If that's true, it's between you and Cole. Exactly, so perhaps you should consider finding employment elsewhere. I'd be happy to provide references, even a small sum to help you relocate. Lila met her gaze steadily. Thank you, but I'm content here. Victoria's mask slipped, revealing something ugly beneath. Don't say I didn't warn you. Cole may be distracted by a pretty face now, but he'll remember his obligations. And when he does, you'll be nothing but an embarrassing memory. She swept out, leaving Lila shaking with suppressed anger. Not at the threats she'd faced worse, but at the presumption, the entitlement, the casual cruelty. Pay her no mind. Lila spun to find Cole in the doorway, his expression thunderous. How much did you hear? Enough. He stepped into the kitchen, running a hand through his hair. Victoria. She's had ideas since before Mary died. I've never encouraged them. She seems certain of your understanding. The only understanding is in her imagination. He met Lila's eyes. I need you to know that. Whatever she said, whatever she threatened, she didn't threaten, just offered to help me leave. And I told her I was content here. Lila turned back to the dishes, needing something to do with her hands. Though maybe she's right, maybe I should... No. Cole was suddenly close, not touching but near enough that she felt his warmth. Don't let her chase you away, please. I'm not good for your reputation, or Charlotte's. People talk and... Let them talk. His voice was fierce. You've brought light back into this house. Charlotte laughs again. The place feels like home instead of a monument to grief. I won't lose that because Victoria Ashford has delusions. Go. Stay. The single word carried weight. Not for the job, not for the debt. Stay because we need you. Charlotte and I. Lila turned to face him, finding herself trapped between his body and the wash basin. This close, she could see the lines grief had carved, the strength in his jaw, the warmth in his eyes. If I stay, people will assume things. They already do. It might become complicated. Life usually is. She searched his face, finding only sincerity. All right, I'll stay. Relief flooded his features. Without thinking, He raised his hand to her cheek, thumb brushing over the faded bruise her father had left. "No one will hurt you again," he said softly. "Not while I draw breath." The moment stretched, charged with possibility. Then Charlotte's laughter echoed from upstairs, breaking the spell. Cole stepped back, clearing his throat. "I should check on them." "Yes." He paused at the door. "Lila, thank you." She nodded, not trusting her voice. When his footsteps faded, she pressed her hands to her burning cheeks. Victoria left the next morning, but not before cornering Lila one last time. "You think you've won," she hissed. "But men like Cole don't marry beneath them. Enjoy warming his bed while it lasts." "The only bed I warm is my own," Lila said quietly. "And I'll thank you not to spread lies that could hurt Charlotte." Victoria's face flushed. "You dare—" "I dare speak truth. Good day, Mrs. Ashford." She left Victoria sputtering, finding satisfaction in having the last word. From the barn, she caught Cole watching, something like pride in his expression. That night, as she tucked Charlotte into bed, the little girl hugged her tightly. "I'm glad you're staying, Miss Lila. Papa is too." He smiled his real smile when Aunt Victoria's carriage left. Lila kissed her forehead. "Sleep tight, sweetheart." "Miss Lila, will you be my mama someday?" The innocent question stole Lila's breath. Charlotte, that's not—" "I know Papa has to ask, but if he did, would you say yes? Let's not worry about some days. Let's just be happy with right now." Charlotte nodded sleepily. "Okay, but I hope someday comes soon." As Lila made her way to her own room, she found Cole on the porch, silhouetted against the stars. "Everything all right?" she asked. "Better now." He glanced at her. "Thank you for handling Victoria, for being patient with Charlotte's questions. How did you—" "Thin walls." His smile was rueful. "I'm sorry if she made you uncomfortable." "Children are honest. It's refreshing." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. The night air carried sage and possibility, and Lila felt something fundamental shifting between them. "My wife would have liked you," Cole said suddenly. "Your strength, your kindness, the way you've embraced Charlotte." "I hope so. I know so." He turned to face her fully. "Whatever happens, Lila, know that you've given us a gift. You've reminded us how to be a family again." The words wrapped around her heart like a promise. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: Boyd's resentment, the town's gossip, the weight of growing feelings neither dared name. But tonight, standing under the vast Arizona sky, anything seemed possible. "Good night, Cole." "Good night, Lila." She left him to his thoughts, but felt his gaze follow her into the house, in her small room. She touched the wooden cross in her pocket and whispered a prayer of gratitude. For the first time in memory, the future held more hope than fear. The rain came without warning, unusual for late spring in Arizona. Dark clouds rolled across the valley like a stampede, turning the afternoon sky the color of fresh bruises. Lila had just finished hanging laundry when the first fat drops began to fall. "Charlotte, help me get these clothes in," she called, already pulling sheets from the line. The little girl ran out eagerly, laughing as rain spotted her dress. Together they rescued what they could, racing back to the house as the drizzle became a downpour. By the time they reached the kitchen, both were soaked and breathless. "My goodness," Murphy said, grabbing towels. "Haven't seen rain like this in years. Good for the land, though. Cole will be pleased." Through the window, Lila watched the ranch hands scrambling to move equipment under cover. The rain hammered down, turning the yard into a maze of puddles and mud. She should have felt safe inside, but something made her uneasy, perhaps the way the temperature had dropped so suddenly, or how her wet clothes clung uncomfortably to her skin. "Let's get you both into dry things," Murphy said briskly. "Charlotte, run up and change. Lila, you're shivering. It wasn't until she tried to climb the stairs that Lila realized how weak her legs felt. The banisters swam in her vision, and she gripped it tightly, willing the dizziness away. Miss Lila, Charlotte's voice seemed to come from very far away. Are you sick? The last thing Lila remembered was Murphy's alarmed shout and the feeling of falling backward into darkness. She woke to hushed voices and the sensation of cool cloth on her forehead. Her limbs felt weighted with lead, and her throat burned with each swallow. Fever broke once already, but it's climbing again. Murphy's worried tone cut through the fog. Same symptoms as the Baxter children last month. Will she be all right? Cole's voice, rough with concern. Lord willing, she's young and strong, but she'll need careful nursing. Lila tried to open her eyes, managing only slits. The room spun lazily, lit by lamplight that hurt to look at. Cole sat in a chair beside her bed, shadows carving deep lines in his face. You're awake. He leaned forward, pressing a cup to her lips. Just water, slow sips. The liquid felt like heaven on her parched throat. She managed a few swallows before exhaustion pulled her under again. Time became fluid, marked only by alternating waves of burning heat and bone-deep cold. Sometimes she woke to Murphy spooning broth between her lips. Other times, Charlotte's small hand held hers, the child singing softly, but always, always. Cole was there, a steady presence in the chair, reading aloud from what sounded like cattle records, as if the familiar numbers could anchor her to the world. In her delirium, past and present tangled, her mother's face swam before her, gentle hands smoothing her hair. But no, that was Cole, his touch infinitely careful as he helped Murphy change the sweat-soaked sheets. Her father's drunken ranting echoed in her ears, but when she cried out, it was Cole's voice that soothed, promising safety, promising she wasn't alone. Papa, I want to help. Charlotte's insistence pierced the fog. You are helping, sweetheart. See, she's calmer when you're here. Can I put the cool cloth on her head? Murphy showed me how. Gently, just like that. Small hands, infinitely gentle, pressed blessed coolness to Lila's burning skin. She managed to open her eyes, finding Charlotte's worried face inches from her own. Hi, Miss Lila, the child whispered. Please get better. I promise I'll be extra good and eat all my vegetables and never complain about arithmetic. Lila tried to smile, her lips cracking with the effort. Charlotte's face lit up. Papa, she's awake, really awake. Cole appeared immediately, his hand finding her forehead. Fever's down, thank God. How long? Lila's voice came out as a rasp. 3 days. He helped her sit up slightly, propping pillows behind her. You gave us quite a scare. Sorry. Don't apologize. Just focus on getting well. His fingers lingered on her cheek before he seemed to catch himself, pulling back. Murphy's making fresh broth. Charlotte, go tell her Miss Lila's awake. The little girl scampered off, leaving them alone. In the lamplight, Lila could see the exhaustion etched on Cole's features, the stubble on his jaw, the wrinkled shirt, the way his shoulders sagged. You look terrible, she said without thinking. He laughed, a short bark of sound. You're one to talk. But his eyes were warm, relieved. I thought, for a moment there, I thought we might lose you. Takes more than a fever to get rid of me. Good. The word carried weight. Because we need you healthy. Murphy bustled in with broth and gentle scolding. You've worn yourself to nothing, child. All work and not enough food. I'd wager. When you're well, we're putting meat on those bones. As Murphy fussed, Cole retreated to his usual chair, but Lila noticed he'd moved it closer to the bed, close enough that she could see the book he'd been reading, not cattle records at all, but a collection of stories, the kind Charlotte loved. You were reading to me, she said softly. Color touched his cheeks. Charlotte insisted. Said you liked the one about the princess and the wild mustangs. I do. Then I'll continue. If you'd like. Doctor says familiar voices help. So he read while she sipped broth, his deep voice washing over her like a blanket. Charlotte crept back in, curling up at the foot of the bed like a kitten. Outside, rain continued to fall, gentler now, pattering against the windows in a soothing rhythm. The map, Lila said suddenly, remembering through the fog. My father's map, the water rights. Cole set down the book. What about them? He used to mutter when he drank, about water being better than gold. Never made sense before, but... She struggled to organize fever-scattered thoughts. What if it wasn't about gold at all? What if the map shows water, underground streams, aquifers? In this drought-prone land, that would be worth more than any gold mine. Cole's eyes sharpened with interest. Do you remember anything specific? Dry Willow Creek. He said it wasn't always dry. Said his father knew where it ran underground, where it could be tapped. She closed her eyes, trying to catch the elusive memory. Said only fools dig for gold when water's the real treasure. Rest now. When you're stronger, we'll look at that map together. But Lila had already drifted off, lulled by the rain and the safety of their presence. She woke next to sunlight streaming through clean windows. The fever had broken for good, leaving her weak but clear-headed. Charlotte sat beside her, carefully practicing her letters on a slate. You're better, the child bounced. Papa said I had to be quiet, but you're awake, so I don't have to be quiet anymore, right? Breathe, Charlotte, Cole said from the doorway, carrying a tray. Let Miss Lila wake up properly. He'd shaved and changed, looking more like himself, though concern still lingered in his eyes. Setting the tray on the bedside table, he helped Lila sit up. How do you feel? Like I've been trampled by your entire herd. That's an improvement. Yesterday you looked like it too. Charlotte giggled. Papa hasn't left your room except when Murphy made him. He even slept in the chair. Charlotte, Cole warned. It's true, and he wouldn't let anyone else help with your medicine. He said you were his responsibility. Pink colored Cole's cheeks. That's enough, little chatterbox. Go help Murphy with breakfast. But I want to stay with Miss Lila. You can visit later. Go on. Charlotte left reluctantly, and silence settled between them. Lila picked at the blanket, unsure why her heart was racing when the fever had passed. Thank you, she said finally, for taking care of me. You do the same, have done the same, for Charlotte. That's different. She's your daughter. I'm just... You're not just anything. His voice was fierce. You're part of this household, part of our family. The word family hung between them like a gift. Lila's eyes burned with sudden tears. No one's ever... I know. Cole sat on the edge of the bed, taking her hand carefully. Your father was a fool. Lila, too blinded by drink and bitterness to see what a treasure he had in you. Don't... The tears spilled over. Don't be kind to me right now. I can't... Then I'll be practical. He squeezed her hand gently. You need food, rest, and no arguments. Murphy's orders. She laughed wetly. Yes, sir. That's better. But he didn't release her hand. Lila, when you were fevered, you said things about your mother, your father, the bruises. She tried to pull away, but he held firm, gentle but inexorable. I need you to know, he continued, that you never have to fear that here, not from me, not from anyone. You're under my protection, but more than that, you're valued. For yourself, not for what you can do or provide. Do you understand? I'm trying to... That's enough for now. He released her hand, standing... Rest. Real rest. Not the kind where you pretend to sleep, then sneak off to do chores. How did you... I know you, Lila Hart, Better than you think." He left her with that, and she found herself touching the hand he'd held, feeling the phantom warmth of his grip. Recovery came slowly. For a week, Murphy insisted she remain abed, bringing meals and keeping her company with ranch gossip. Charlotte visited constantly, practicing her reading by Lila's bedside and filling the room with chatter and drawings. "I made this for you," she announced one afternoon, presenting a slightly lopsided flower crown. "For when you're all better and can come outside again." "It's beautiful," Lila said, meaning it. "Will you put it on me?" Charlotte placed it ceremoniously on Lila's head, then clapped. "Now you look like a princess. Papa will think you're pretty. He already does, but now you're extra pretty." "Charlotte Ann Wilder," Cole said from the doorway. "What have I told you about matchmaking?" "I'm not," the child protested. "I'm just saying true things." Lila felt heat rise in her cheeks as Cole entered, carrying papers. "Sorry," he said. "She gets notions." "It's fine. She's 5. "Nearly 6, Charlotte corrected. "My birthday's next month. Can we have a party? Papa with cake and ribbons and maybe dancing." "We'll see." Cole turned to Lila. "Actually, that's partly why I'm here. Found these in my office." He spread the papers on the bed. "Your father's map and the water rights deed." Lila studied the faded markings, memory stirring. "Here," she pointed. "Dry Willow Creek. And these marks, I think they indicate underground flow. See how they follow the canyon? If you're right, this could transform not just my ranch, but the whole valley. Water security in drought years." His excitement was contagious. "Would you help me survey it when you're well?" "Of course. Of course I'll help." Their eyes met and held, the moment stretching until Charlotte tugged on Cole's sleeve. "Papa, you're doing the looking thing again." "What looking thing?" Cole asked, though his ears reddened. "The way you look at Miss Lila when you think nobody sees. Like how Mr. Morrison looks at the apple pie before Sunday dinner." Lila couldn't help it. She burst out laughing. Cole groaned, covering his face. "Charlotte, why don't you go see if Murphy needs help?" "But Papa..." "Go." The child skipped out, singing something about Papa and pretty ladies sitting in trees. Cole shook his head. "I'm sorry, again. She's impossible." "She's observant," Lila said softly. Cole went very still. "Lila." "When I was ill," she said quickly, before courage failed, "I dreamed. About my mother, about safety, about home. But when I woke, you were here, every time. Where else would I be?" "That's just it. You could have had Murphy tend me, or one of the other women from town. But you stayed." "Yes," simple acknowledgement, no excuses. "Why?" He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because the thought of you suffering, of you needing something I could provide and not being here to give it, I couldn't bear it. Because Charlotte loves you, because I..." He stopped, jaw working. "You..." "I care for you, more than is proper, more than I have any right to." The admission hung between them, fragile as spun glass. Lila's heart raced, but not from fever this time. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. No one's ever wanted me for anything but work or worse." "Then we'll go slow," Cole said gently. "No expectations, no demands, just possibility." "I'd like that." His smile transformed his face, years falling away. "Get well, Lila. Everything else can wait." That night, as Charlotte tucked her flower crown carefully on the bedside table, and Cole read another chapter of stories, Lila felt something she'd never experienced before. Not just safety or gratitude, but belonging. The feeling of being exactly where she was meant to be, with people who saw her truly. The rain had passed, leaving the desert blooming with unexpected life. And in a small room in a big house, three hearts began the careful, tender work of becoming a family. Outside, the moon rose over Dry Willow Creek, keeping ancient secrets about water and promises and love that runs deeper than any map could show. The night was still, too still. Lila woke with a start, unsure what had disturbed her sleep. Through her window, stars glittered in a cloudless sky, and the ranch lay quiet under a crescent moon. She'd been back to full health for a week now, the fever a fading memory, but something felt wrong. Then she smelled its smoke, acrid and sharp, carried on the night breeze. "Fire!" someone shouted from across the yard. "Fire in the supply shed!" Lila threw on her wrapper and boots, racing outside. Orange flames were already licking through the roof of the storage building where they kept grain, tools, and winter supplies. Ranch hands stumbled from the bunkhouse, shouting and running for buckets. "Charlotte!" Cole's voice cut through the chaos. "Where's Charlotte?" "She's in bed," Lila began, then froze. Earlier that evening, Charlotte had mentioned wanting to check on the new kittens in the shed. What if she'd snuck out? Without thinking, Lila ran toward the burning building. The heat hit her like a physical wall, but she could hear something above the roar of flames, a child's terrified crying. "Charlotte!" She pulled her wrapper over her nose and mouth, plunging into the smoke. The interior was a maze of flickering shadows and falling embers. "Charlotte, where are you?" "Miss Lila." The voice came from behind overturned feed sacks. Charlotte huddled there, tears streaming down her soot-stained face. A kitten clutched to her chest. Lila scooped her up, turning back toward the door, but a burning beam crashed down, blocking their exit. Smoke filled her lungs as she searched frantically for another way out. "The window," Charlotte pointed through the haze. It was small and high, but their only chance. Lila pushed Charlotte up, feeling the child squeeze through just as another section of roof collapsed. She hauled herself after, hands scrambling for purchase on the splintering wood. Glass shattered, and she felt the sharp bite across her palms. But then strong arms were pulling her free. "I've got you!" Cole's voice, rough with fear and smoke. "Both of you, thank God!" They tumbled onto the cool ground, gasping clean air. Cole ran his hands over Charlotte, checking for injuries while Jake Morrison threw a blanket around Lila's shoulders. "The kitten," Charlotte sobbed. "I just wanted to save the kitten." "Shh, baby. You're safe." Cole held his daughter tight, but his eyes found Lila over Charlotte's head, dark with emotion. "You both are." The ranch hands had formed a bucket brigade, but the shed was lost. They focused on keeping the fire from spreading, soaking the nearby buildings while the storage shed burned itself out. By dawn, only smoking timbers remained. "How'd it start?" Jake asked, kicking through the debris. "No lanterns lit? No lightning?" Cole picked up something from the ashes, a glass bottle, the kind used for kerosene. Near it, the charred remains of oil-soaked rags. "This was deliberate," he said quietly. Lila knelt beside a muddy patch, her burned hands throbbing. "Cole, look!" Hoof prints, deep and fresh, leading away from the shed toward the road. But what caught her attention was the peculiar mark. The left rear shoe had a distinctive chip, almost like a letter. "I've seen that print before," Jake said slowly. "Boyd's horse throws a shoe regular-like. Has Tommy make him special ones." Cole's face went stone hard. "Where is Boyd?" "Haven't seen him since yesterday," another hand offered. "Said he was riding to town." "Jake, take 2 men and follow those tracks. Carefully." Cole turned to Lila. "Let me see your hands." "I'm fine." "You're bleeding." His touch was infinitely gentle as he examined the cuts. "Come inside. These need tending." In the kitchen, Murphy fussed over Charlotte while Cole cleaned Lila's wounds by lamplight. His jaw was tight with controlled anger, whether at Boyd, the fire, or her recklessness. She couldn't tell. That was foolish, he said finally. Running into a burning building. Charlotte was in there. I know. His hands stilled on hers. And I'm grateful. More grateful than words can say. But Lila, if something had happened to you both. It didn't. But it could have. He looked up, and she saw fear still lurking in his eyes. I can't lose anyone else. Not Charlotte, not you. The admission hung between them. Lila turned her palm up, threading her fingers through his. You didn't. He brought their joined hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to her bandaged knuckles. When I saw you run into that fire, I've never been so terrified. Papa, Charlotte appeared in the doorway. Murphy hovering behind. Is Miss Lila hurt bad? No, sweetheart, just some scratches. Cole held out his free arm, and Charlotte ran to him. But no more midnight adventures. Understood. No kittens are worth risking your life. I'm sorry. Charlotte's lip trembled. I just wanted to help them. I know. Lila smoothed the child's hair with her unbandaged hand. You have a kind heart, but next time, wake one of us first. All right. Charlotte nodded, then yawned hugely. Murphy stepped forward. I'll take her back to bed. Come along, little one. Alone again. Cole and Lila sat in comfortable silence while he finished bandaging her hands. The kitchen was warm and peaceful. Hard to believe chaos had reigned just hours before. Tell me what you're thinking, Lila said softly. I'm thinking Boyd's made a serious mistake. I'm thinking someone put him up to this. He's mean but not usually stupid. And I'm thinking... He paused, meeting her eyes. I'm thinking I want to kiss you properly, but I'm covered in soot, and you're injured, and the timing is all wrong. Heat that had nothing to do with fire flooded Lila's cheeks. Cole! I know. I said we'd go slow. But when I thought I might lose you tonight, slow seemed less important than honest. She stood, moving between his knees where he sat, even seated. He was tall enough that she only had to tilt her head slightly. Maybe honest is better than slow. His hand settled carefully on her waist, mindful of potential bruises. Are you sure? Instead of answering, she leaned down and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle, tentative. A question and answer all at once. Cole made a soft sound, one hand sliding up to cradle the back of her head, deepening the contact. When they parted, both were breathing unsteadily. I should let you rest, Cole said roughly. Probably. Neither moved. Lila. Boss! Jake's shout from outside broke the spell. We found something. Cole squeezed her waist gently before standing. We'll continue this later. I'll hold you to that. His smile was quick and brilliant before he schooled his features. Heading outside, Lila followed, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. Jake had returned with something wrapped in burlap. Found Boyd's horse tied up at Widow Thompson's abandoned place, about 5 miles north. And this. He unwrapped the bundle, revealing a leather saddlebag. Papers inside. Looks like someone promised Boyd money to make trouble. Signed B. Whitlock. Bernard Whitlock. Cole frowned. The freight company owner. Same. There's more mention something about water rights and forcing you to sell. Jake handed over the papers. Boyd lit out when he saw us coming, but his horse was lame. Can't have got far. Cole studied the documents, his expression darkening. Whitlock's been buying up land all along the valley. If he knew about the water... Your father did business with Whitlock, Lila said suddenly. I remember him coming by when I was younger. They'd drink and talk about the old days and finding fortune. What if Papa told him about the map? Then Whitlock knows exactly what's at stake. Cole turned to Jake. Double the watch, nobody gets near the house or remaining buildings without my say-so. And send word to the sheriff about Boyd. Already sent Tom riding to town. Jake glanced at Lila. Glad you and the little miss are all right. Ma'am, That was brave. What you did. After Jake left, Cole walked Lila back inside, tension radiating from his frame. "This is my fault," she said quietly. "If Papa hadn't—" "Stop." Cole turned her to face him. "Your father's poor choices aren't your responsibility. Neither are Whitlock's or Boyd's." "But if I hadn't come here, then Charlotte might have died tonight." His hands framed her face. "You saved my daughter. Lila, whatever else happens, nothing matters more than that." "She saved me too," Lila whispered. "Both of you, from a life that was no life at all." Cole kissed her again, deeper this time, as if sealing a promise. When he pulled back, his eyes were fierce with determination. "Whitlock won't win. Boyd won't hurt you. I swear it." "I know." "Good. Now bed. Murphy will have my hide if you don't rest." As Lila climbed the stairs, she heard Cole giving quiet orders to the hands. Extra patrols, guards on the house, preparations for siege. She touched her lips, still feeling the warmth of his kiss, the safety of his promise. In her room, she found Charlotte curled in her bed, the rescued kitten purring against her chest. "I was scared," Charlotte whispered. "Can I stay with you?" "Of course, sweetheart." They settled together, the kitten between them. Through the window, Lila could see lanterns moving as men patrolled the grounds. She pulled Charlotte closer, humming softly until the child's breathing evened out. Dawn came slowly, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. The acrid smell of smoke lingered, but underneath it, the eternal scent of sage and possibility. Boyd was still out there. Whitlock was plotting. The danger hadn't passed. But in this moment, with Charlotte safe in her arms and Cole standing guard below, Lila felt something she'd never expected: the fierce determination to fight for this life, this family, this love that had grown from ashes. The fire had been meant to destroy. Instead, it had only forged them stronger. When Cole knocked softly an hour later, checking on them, Lila met his eyes over Charlotte's sleeping form. No words were needed. The promise hung between them, bright as flame and twice as warming. They would face whatever came, together. The market square in Dust Hollow buzzed with its usual Saturday morning chaos. Farmers hawked vegetables, women fingered bolts of cloth, and children darted between the stalls like minnows. Lila guided the wagon carefully through the crowd, Charlotte bouncing beside her on the seat. "Can we get peppermint sticks? Miss Lila, please." "After we finish Murphy's list." Lila smiled at the child's enthusiasm. It had been 2 weeks since the fire, and Cole had finally deemed it safe enough for them to venture to town, though Jake Morrison followed at a discreet distance. They were examining onions when the crowd's buzz shifted, taking on an ugly edge. Lila looked up to see Silas weaving through the market, even more disheveled than when she'd left him. Beside him walked a man in an expensive suit, Bernard Whitlock. She realized with a sinking heart. "Well, well," Whitlock's voice carried across the square. "Miss Hart, how fortunate." Lila pulled Charlotte closer. "Mr. Whitlock, Papa!" Silas squinted at her, swaying slightly. "About time you showed your face, girl. Got business to discuss." "We have no business, Papa." "That's where you're wrong." Whitlock smiled, all teeth and no warmth. "Your father and I have reached an understanding, a beneficial arrangement for all parties." A crowd was gathering, drawn by the promise of drama. Lila recognized several faces: Mrs. Garrett from the general store, Agnes Fletcher from the church, Mayor Hale looking uncomfortable. "Whatever arrangement you've made doesn't concern me," Lila said firmly. "But it does." Whitlock produced a document with a flourish. "Your father has agreed to a marriage contract. You'll become my wife, bringing with you all claims to water rights currently in dispute. In exchange, I'll clear his debts and provide him with a comfortable living." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Charlotte pressed against Lila's side. "I'm not property to be traded," Lila said, voice steady despite her racing heart. "Ungrateful brat," Silas lurched forward. "After everything I've done—" "Everything you've done," Lila's temper finally snapped. "You mean drinking away Mother's memory? Raising your hand to me when the whiskey made you mean trying to sell me to the first man who'd take your marker?" "You watch your tongue, girl." "I'm done watching anything." She faced the crowd, chin high. "You all want to whisper about the Hart girl living at the Wilder Ranch. Fine. Here's the truth, mister. Wilder offered me honest work when my father tried to trade me for a debt. I cook, I clean, I care for his daughter. That's all." "That's not how it looks." "Mrs." Garrett sniffed. "Then perhaps you should look harder," a familiar voice said. Cole stepped through the crowd, his presence immediately commanding attention. "Miss Hart has been nothing but proper in my household, which is more than I can say for those spreading malicious gossip." "Cole." Whitlock's smile turned predatory. "Perfect timing. We were just discussing Miss Hart's future." "Were you?" Cole moved to stand beside Lila, his hand settling protectively on Charlotte's shoulder. "Funny, I didn't hear anyone ask Miss Hart about her own future." "The girl's father has agreed." "The girl," Cole interrupted coldly, "is a grown woman capable of making her own choices, and Silas Hart has no say in her life anymore." "I'm her father," Silas protested. "She's bound to obey." "Actually," Mayor Hale cleared his throat, "that's not entirely true. Miss Hart is of age. Any marriage would require her consent, regardless of parental wishes." Whitlock's expression darkened. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately. There are considerations. The water rights, for instance." "Ah, yes, the water rights." Cole smiled dangerously. "The ones legally deeded to me as collateral for Silas's debt. The ones you've been trying to steal through arson and intimidation." Murmurs swept the crowd. Whitlock stiffened. "That's a serious accusation." "It's not an accusation when I have proof." Cole pulled out Boyd's saddlebag. "Written instructions to your hired man. Boyd's already confessed to the sheriff." The crowd's murmur became a roar. Whitlock stepped back, but Cole wasn't finished. "As for the water rights, I've had surveyors out to the old Hart claim. The underground streams are there, just as the map indicated. Enough water to sustain the entire valley through drought years." "That water belongs to whoever owns the land," Whitlock began. "Which would be me, as the deed holder." Cole's voice carried clearly. "But I have a proposition for the town. I'll develop the water access at my expense and share it with the community. Fair usage rates. Priority given to families and small farms. Dust Hollow doesn't have to fear drought anymore." The shift in the crowd was palpable. Where moments before they'd been hungry for scandal, now they looked at Cole with growing respect and at Whitlock with suspicion. "You can't just—" Whitlock spluttered. "I can and I will, unless you'd prefer I press charges for conspiracy and destruction of property." Agnes Fletcher stepped forward. "Seems to me, Mr. Wilder's offering something valuable to this community, more than certain others who just take—" "The church could certainly use reliable water," Pastor Fletcher added, moving to stand by his wife. One by one, townspeople began voicing support. Whitlock's face grew redder with each defection from his assumed influence. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Yes," Cole said simply. "It is. Leave town, Whitlock, today. Don't come back." For a moment, violence hung in the air. Then Whitlock turned on his heel and stalked away, leaving Silas swaying in confusion. "My money," Silas whined. "He promised." "Papa." Lila stepped forward, Charlotte's hand still in hers. "Go home, please, before you make this worse." "Worse? You've ruined everything just like your mother, always thinking you're better." "Don't." Cole's voice was low, dangerous. Don't say another word about her mother or about Lila. Ever. You defending her honor? Silas laughed nastily. Everybody knows what she's doing to earn her keep. Warming your bed, playing mother to your brat. The crack of Cole's fist against Silas's jaw was loud in the sudden silence. Silas crumpled, blood streaming from his nose. Papa! Lila knelt beside him from habit, but Silas pushed her away. Don't need nothing from you, he slurred. Dead to me, you hear dead like your worthless mother. The words hit like physical blows, but before Lila could respond, Charlotte tugged free and marched up to Silas. You're a mean, horrible man, the 5-year-old announced clearly. And Miss Lila is wonderful and kind, and you don't deserve her. So there. Shocked silence. Then someone laughed. Agnes Fletcher. Lila realized. Soon others joined in. Not cruel laughter, but the kind that breaks tension, that sides with a child's honest assessment. Silas struggled to his feet, humiliated and furious. You'll regret this, all of you. He stumbled away, and Lila felt something in her chest finally break free, not sadness, but release. The last chain binding her to her old life had snapped. Are you all right? Cole asked softly. Yes, she stood, surprising herself by meaning it. Yes, I am. Mayor Hale stepped forward, offering his hand to Cole. That water proposition, when can we discuss details? As the men talked, Agnes Fletcher approached Lila. I owe you an apology. Dear, I listened to gossip instead of trusting what I could see with my own eyes. There's no need. There is. Agnes squeezed her hands. You've brought light back to that little girl, and to her father. If I'm not mistaken, don't let narrow minds drive you away. One by one, townspeople approached, some offering apologies, others simple nods of acknowledgement. The tide had turned. Lila realized. She was no longer just the heart girl, the subject of whispers. She was Miss Lila, who'd saved Charlotte from a fire, who'd stood up to her father, who belonged. Can we get peppermint sticks now? Charlotte asked hopefully, and the normalcy of it made everyone laugh. Yes, sweetheart, let's finish our shopping. As they moved through the market, Lila noticed the difference. Vendors smiled genuinely. Women nodded greeting. Children waved at Charlotte. It wasn't complete acceptance that would take time, but it was a beginning. Miss Lila? Charlotte tugged her hand. Why did that bad man want to marry you? Because he wanted something that wasn't his to take. Papa won't let him, will he? No, sweetheart. Your papa won't let anyone hurt us. Good, because I want you to marry Papa instead. Then you'd be my real mama. Heat flooded Lila's cheeks. Charlotte. I know he has to ask first, Charlotte continued matter-of-factly. But I think he wants to. He gets the special smile when he looks at you. Before Lila could respond, Cole appeared with Jake, both men carrying parcels. All done, he asked, eyes warm on Lila's flushed face. Yes, we were just discussing peppermint sticks. Important topic. His eyes crinkled with suppressed laughter. Jake, would you drive the ladies home? I need to stop by the sheriff's office. Boyd? Lila asked quietly. In custody. He'll face trial, but he's already implicated Whitlock in exchange for leniency. Cole touched her elbow gently. It's over, Lila. You're safe. Safe. Such a simple word for such a profound gift. The ride home was peaceful. Charlotte chattering about everything she'd seen while Jake whistled tunelessly. But Lila's mind replayed the morning's events, her father's final rejection, the town's shifting allegiance, Cole's public defense, Charlotte's fierce loyalty. She'd spent so long feeling worthless, accepting her father's assessment as truth. But today she'd stood in the center of town and declared her own worth, and people had listened. Miss Lila. Charlotte leaned against her. Are you sad about your papa? A little, Lila admitted. But sometimes letting go of someone who hurts you is the kindest thing you can do for them and yourself. Like when Papa had to put down the horse that went mean, he said it hurt, but it was necessary. Something like that. That evening, after Charlotte was abed, Lila found Cole on the porch, watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of fire. "Thank you," she said, settling beside him. "For today, for standing up for me. You stood up for yourself. I just made sure you had backup." He glanced at her. "How are you really?" "Free," she said after consideration. "For the first time in my life, truly free." "And the marriage proposal?" She laughed. "Which one, my father's scheme or Charlotte's matchmaking?" "Charlotte's been proposing." Cole groaned. "What did she say?" "That you get a special smile when you look at me." "Observant child." He turned to face her fully. "She's not wrong." "Cole, I know we said slow, but after the fire, after today, life's too short for excessive caution." He took her hands, mindful of the healing cuts. "I'm not proposing Charlotte would never forgive me for doing it without her, but I want you to know where I stand, where my heart stands." "And where is that?" "Completely, utterly lost to you." His thumb stroked over her knuckles. "I love you, Lila Hart, not because you saved Charlotte, not because you've brought warmth back to our home, but because you're the strongest, kindest, most infuriating woman I've ever known." "Infuriating!" "You make me feel things I thought I'd buried with Mary. You make me want impossible things. You make me believe in tomorrow again." His voice roughened. "So yes, infuriating." Lila freed one hand to touch his face, feeling the slight roughness of evening stubble. "I love you too, even when you're overbearing and protective and determined to solve everyone's problems." "Sounds like we're well matched in infuriation." "Seems so." He kissed her then, deep and sure and full of promise. When they parted, the first stars were appearing in the darkening sky. "What happens now?" Lila asked. "Now we build the water system for the town, a future for Charlotte, a life together, if you'll have us." He smiled. "Though I should probably let Charlotte help with the formal proposal. She has opinions." "I've noticed." They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, watching night settle over the desert. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges developing the water resources, dealing with the legal aftermath of Boyd and Whitlock's crimes, navigating their changing relationship. But tonight, Lila was exactly where she belonged, home. Loved, choosing and chosen. The girl who'd been told she was worthless had found her worth, not in others' opinions, but in her own heart. And that, she thought as Cole pulled her closer, was worth more than all the gold or water in Arizona. The dust storm rolled across the desert like a living wall, turning the afternoon sky the color of dried blood. Lila had seen it coming from the kitchen window, a brown haze on the horizon that grew and grew until it swallowed the sun. "Charlotte, inside now," she called. But the yard was empty. The child had been playing by the corral just minutes ago. Fear clawed at her throat as the first winds hit, carrying stinging sand and debris. She pulled her shawl over her nose and mouth, squinting through the growing maelstrom. "Charlotte!" Through the howling wind came a thin cry. Lila fought toward the sound, finding Charlotte huddled against the barn wall, tears cutting tracks through the dust on her face. "I'm scared," the child sobbed. "Hold on to me." Lila wrapped her arms around Charlotte. But as they turned toward the house, riders emerged from the storm like demons, 6 men with bandanas covering their faces. "Well, well." Boyd Kincaid pulled down his bandana, his smile cold and satisfied. "Just the ladies we were looking for." Lila's blood froze. Boyd was supposed to be in jail awaiting trial. Behind him, she recognized 2 of Whitlock's hired guns, and, horrifyingly, her father swaying in his saddle. "Take the girl." Whitlock himself emerged from the group. "She's our insurance. Wilder will sign over everything to get his brat back." "No." Lila pushed Charlotte behind her, Take me instead. She's just a child." "Even better." Boyd dismounted, approaching with rope. "We take both. Double the leverage." Lila tried to run, but in the blinding storm with Charlotte to protect, she didn't get far. Rough hands seized her, and she heard Charlotte scream as someone grabbed the child. "Please," Lila begged. "Let her go. I'll come willingly. Just—" A fist caught her temple, sending her to her knees. Through ringing ears, she heard Boyd laugh. "Willing or not makes no difference to me." They bound her hands, throwing her over a saddle like a sack of grain. Charlotte was crying somewhere nearby, the sound tearing at Lila's heart. As consciousness wavered, she caught glimpses of her father's face, not triumphant as she'd expected, but uncertain, almost afraid. The ride was a nightmare of jarring movement and sand-filled air. When they finally stopped, the storm was beginning to pass. Lila recognized the location: Raven Canyon, a narrow gorge with high walls and only one way in or out. "Perfect spot for negotiations," Whitlock said, pulling Lila roughly from the horse. "Wilder wants his women back. He brings the water rights deed and signs over his ranch. Fair trade." "He'll bring the sheriff," Lila said through cracked lips. "No lawman's going to find us in time. Boyd, take the brat to the back of the canyon. Keep her quiet." "Don't hurt her," Lila pleaded. "She's done nothing." "That depends entirely on Wilder's cooperation." Whitlock grabbed her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Should have accepted my marriage offer when you had the chance. Would have been easier for everyone." They tied her to a scrub pine near the canyon entrance, positioning her where she'd be visible to anyone approaching. Charlotte's whimpers echoed off the stone walls, each sound a knife to Lila's heart. "Papa," she said when Silas shuffled near. "Please, whatever you've been promised, it's not worth a child's life." "Shut up," he muttered, but wouldn't meet her eyes. "Should have been a good daughter. Should have done what you were told." "Like Mama did." The words came out sharp with desperation. "Oh, look how that ended, broken and buried before her time. Is that what you want for me?" Something flickered in his bloodshot eyes. Shame, perhaps, or long-buried memory. He turned away, taking a long pull from a flask. Time crawled. The sun sank lower, painting the canyon walls in shades of orange and red. Lila's arms ached from the bonds, her throat parched from dust and fear. But worse was not knowing if Charlotte was all right, if Cole even knew they were gone. Then, hoofbeats. Cole emerged from the settling dust, Jake and 4 other men flanking him. His face was carved from stone, but Lila saw the fear beneath his control. "Let them go, Whitlock," Cole called. "This is between us." "Indeed it is." Whitlock stepped forward, gun drawn, but not aimed. "Simple transaction. The deed to the water rights and your ranch for their safe return." "Done." Cole didn't hesitate. "I have the papers here." "No." Lila struggled against her bonds. "Cole, you can't—" "Quiet." Boyd backhanded her casually, splitting her lip. The sound Cole made was inhuman. Only Jake's restraining hand kept him from charging forward. "Touch her again and no deal will save you," Cole growled. "Big talk for a man outnumbered." Whitlock gestured. "The papers. Throw them over." "The woman and child first." "Papers first, or the little girl takes a tumble off the canyon rim. It's a long way down." Lila's heart stopped. She met Cole's anguished gaze, trying to convey everything she couldn't say: love, gratitude, forgiveness for whatever choice he made. Cole dismounted slowly, pulling documents from his saddlebag. "These are what you want. Now let them go." He tossed the packet. Whitlock caught it greedily, passing it to one of his men to verify. "Excellent. Boyd, bring the brat. We'll need Wilder's signature witnessed." A child's scream split the air. Then Boyd's voice, high with panic. "She bit me, the little hellcat, she's running." Charlotte burst from behind a rock formation, racing toward her father with Boyd in pursuit. The canyon erupted in chaos. Cole spurred his horse forward as his men opened fire on Whitlock's group. Bullets whined off stone, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Lila watched in horror as her father stood frozen in the crossfire. Whiskey dulled reflexes too slow. A bullet meant for Jake caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Papa, against all reason, all history, she couldn't watch him fall without trying to help. She worked frantically at her bonds, the rope tearing her wrists raw. Cole had reached Charlotte, sweeping her up into the saddle. But Boyd was drawing a bead on them both. No! Lila finally wrenched free, launching herself at Boyd. They went down hard, rolling in the dust. Boyd was stronger, but desperation gave her strength. They grappled for his gun, the weapon spinning away. Always thought you needed taming, Boyd snarled, pinning her down. Guess I'll have to... His words cut off in a gurgle. Silas stood behind him, swaying, a bloody knife in his hand. Boyd toppled sideways, clutching his side. Nobody, Silas slurred, touches my girl. Only I get to know that ain't right neither. He blinked, seeming to see Lila clearly for the first time in years. Your mama, she'd haunt me proper if I... He collapsed, blood spreading beneath him. Lila crawled to him, pressing her hands against the wound. Why? She whispered. Dunno, his voice was fading. Maybe 'cause you look like her when she was young. For I ruined everything. Tell her, when you see her, tell her I'm sorry. Papa, should have been better, should have... His eyes fixed on something beyond her. Martha, that you've been so long... He died with her mother's name on his lips, and despite everything... Lila felt tears spring to her eyes, not for the man he'd been, but for who he might have been, in another life, with different choices. Lila Cole was suddenly there, pulling her against him. Are you hurt? Did they... I'm all right. Charlotte. Safe. Jake has her. He cupped her face, thumbs gentle on her bruises. When I saw them take you, God, Lila, I've never been so scared. Around them, the fight was ending. 2 of Whitlock's men were down. The others surrendering, Whitlock himself lay groaning, Jake's boot on his chest and rifle aimed at his head. It's over, Cole said. You're safe, both of you. But Lila was looking at her father's still form. He saved me. At the end, he chose to save me. Then he found a shred of humanity after all. Cole helped her stand. Come away now. Let the sheriff handle the rest. As if summoned, more riders appeared. Sheriff Morrison with a proper posse. They'd been trailing Whitlock's gang, arriving just in time to witness the aftermath. Looks like you handled things, the sheriff said dryly, though I'll need statements from everyone. The next hours blurred together, statements given, wounds tended, the dead handled with proper dignity despite their crimes. Charlotte clung to both Cole and Lila, chattering nervously about her daring escape and how she'd remembered to bite the soft part of Boyd's hand, just like Jake taught me with bad dogs. It wasn't until they were home, Charlotte finally asleep and the house quiet, that reaction hit. Lila found herself shaking uncontrollably, the terror of almost losing everything catching up at once. Here. Cole wrapped a blanket around her, then simply held her while she shook. It's all right. You're safe. Charlotte's safe. It's over. He was going to kill her, use her to... She couldn't finish. But he didn't. You protected her long enough for us to find you. You were brave. Lila. Incredible. I was terrified. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. He pressed a kiss to her hair. You saved our daughter. The word our didn't escape her notice. She pulled back to see his face. Cole. Marry me. The words tumbled out, urgent and graceless. I know I should ask properly, with Charlotte's help and a ring and flowers. But I can't spend another day without knowing you'll always be here. Be my wife. Lila, be Charlotte's mother. Make us a real family. You were willing to give up everything, she whispered. The ranch, the water rights, your life's work. None of it matters without you both. His hands framed her face. I'd give it all again, 100 times over. The ranch is just land. But you and Charlotte, you're my heart, my home. Yes, the word came out on a sob. Yes, Cole, yes. He kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of promise. When they parted, both were crying tears of relief, of joy, of futures nearly lost and love found. Should we wake Charlotte? Lila asked. She'll want to know. Let her sleep. We'll tell her in the morning. Cole smiled, the expression transforming his face. Though she'll probably claim credit for the whole thing. She wouldn't be entirely wrong. They sat together watching the stars through the window, planning quietly. A small wedding, just family and close friends. Lila would officially adopt Charlotte. They'd build the water system as promised, ensuring Dust Hollow's future. I want to do something for Papa, Lila said quietly. A proper burial, next to Mama. Whatever he was, he tried to make it right at the end. Of course. We'll see it done properly. And I want to use some of the water profits to help people like I was. Women who need a safe place, a second chance. I think that's a fine idea. Cole pulled her closer. Have I mentioned lately that I love you? Not in the last few minutes. Terrible oversight. I love you, Lila Wilder. Not Wilder yet. Close enough. He kissed her temple. Always been good at recognizing what's mine. Yours, am I? And I'm yours, fair trade. Outside, the desert stretched vast and eternal under the stars. But inside, in the circle of Cole's arms with Charlotte safe upstairs, Lila had found something worth more than all the gold or water in the territory. She'd found home. The morning sun painted Dust Hollow's main street in shades of gold and promise. 6 months had passed since the confrontation at Raven Canyon, and the town bore little resemblance to the struggling settlement it had been. Green fields stretched where brown dust once ruled, fed by the irrigation channels Cole had promised and delivered. Stop fussing, Murphy scolded, adjusting Lila's wedding dress for the 10th time. You look perfect. I've never worn anything so fine. Lila smoothed the cream-colored silk, a gift from Agnes Fletcher and the church women. What if I trip? What if you stop worrying and enjoy your wedding day? Agnes smiled from her seat by the window. Cole's already at the church, wearing a hole in the floor with his pacing, through the window of the boarding house room they'd borrowed for preparations. Lila could see the church steeple rising against the clear autumn sky. In just an hour, she'd walk down that aisle to become Mrs. Cole Wilder. Miss Lila! Charlotte burst through the door in her flower girl dress, ribbons streaming. Papa says to tell you he's not running away, even though Jake offered to help him escape to Mexico. The women laughed, tension breaking. Lila knelt to straighten Charlotte's sash. And what did your papa say to that? He said wild horses couldn't drag him away, and that he's been waiting for this day since you walked into our kitchen. Charlotte's eyes sparkled. Is that romantic, Mrs.? Fletcher says it's romantic. Very romantic, Lila agreed, heart swelling. A knock interrupted them. Ladies, Mayor Hale's voice carried through the door. The ceremony should begin soon. Lila stood, taking a steadying breath. In her father's absence, the mayor had offered to walk her down the aisle, a kindness that still made her throat tight with emotion. Ready? Agnes asked softly. Ready. The walk to the church passed in a blur of well-wishers and autumn sunshine. It seemed the entire town had turned out, transformed from suspicious gossipers to genuine supporters. The water Cole had brought to the valley had changed more than just the landscape. At the church doors, Mayor Hale offered his arm. "Your young man looks ready to come fetch you himself if we don't hurry." Through the open doorway, Lila could see Cole at the altar, handsome in his black suit, Jake standing beside him as best man. But it was the look on Cole's face when he saw her that stole her breath, wonder and love, and a joy so profound it brought tears to her eyes. The aisle had never seemed longer or shorter. Then she was there, Mayor Hale placing her hand in Cole's, and the rest of the world fell away. "Dearly beloved," Pastor Fletcher began, but Lila barely heard the words. She was lost in Cole's eyes, in the warm strength of his hands holding hers, in the miracle of this moment she'd never dared dream possible. "The couple has written their own vows," the pastor said, and Cole cleared his throat. "Lila Hart," he began, voice rough with emotion. "6 months ago, you walked into my life and turned everything upside down. You brought laughter back to my daughter and light back to my home. You showed me that a heart could love again, deeper and truer than before. I promise to cherish you, protect you, and stand beside you through whatever comes. You saved us. Lila, now let us save each other, every day, for the rest of our lives." Lila was crying openly now, not caring who saw. "Cole Wilder, you offered me respect when I'd known only contempt. You gave me a home when I had nowhere to go. You really saw me when I couldn't even see myself. I promised to love you and Charlotte with everything I have, to build a life with you full of joy and purpose, to be your partner in all things. You gave me wings. Cole, now let me help you fly." "The rings," Pastor Fletcher prompted. Charlotte stepped forward importantly, carrying the simple gold bands on a silk cushion. "I didn't drop them," she announced proudly, causing gentle laughter to ripple through the congregation. Cole slipped the ring onto Lila's finger, his hand steady and sure. "With this ring, I thee wed." Lila's hands trembled only slightly as she returned the gesture. "With this ring, I thee wed. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Cole didn't need to be told twice. He cupped Lila's face gently, mindful of the watching crowd, and kissed her with a tenderness that promised forever. The church erupted in cheers and applause. "Ladies and gentlemen," Pastor Fletcher beamed, "I present Mr. and Mrs. Cole Wilder." They walked back down the aisle as a family, Charlotte between them, hands linked, outside. The town had prepared a celebration in the square. Tables groaned under the weight of food. Fiddle music filled the air, and paper lanterns waited to be lit when darkness fell. "Happy," Cole murmured in Lila's ear as they greeted well-wishers. "Beyond words." The afternoon dissolved into a blur of congratulations, shared meals, and dancing. Cole waltzed Lila around the makeshift floor while Charlotte spun with Jake, standing on his boots. Even Murphy was coaxed into a reel, laughing like a young girl. As the sun began to set, Cole drew Lila away from the crowd to a small rise overlooking the valley. The irrigation channels caught the dying light like ribbons of gold, and green fields stretched as far as the eye could see. "Look what we've built," he said softly. "We've only just begun." Lila leaned into his strength. "Cole, there's something I want to discuss, about the water profits and helping other women." "Already started the paperwork," he interrupted, smiling at her surprise. "The Wilder Foundation. We'll provide safe housing and honest work for women escaping bad situations. Agnes Fletcher has agreed to help run it." "You wonderful man." She pulled him down for a kiss. "Have I mentioned I love you?" "Not in the last hour. Terrible oversight." They were interrupted by Charlotte running up the hill. "Mama, Papa, they're lighting the lanterns." "Mama." The word still sent warmth flooding through Lila every time. She'd officially adopted Charlotte that morning, the papers signed just before the wedding. "Come on, then." Cole swung Charlotte up onto his shoulders. "Let's make a wish." They rejoined the celebration as dozens of paper lanterns rose into the darkening sky, each carrying hopes and dreams into the vast Arizona night. Lila watched them rise, thinking of another night when Cole had reached out his hand and offered her a chance. "What did you wish for?" Charlotte asked from her perch. "I didn't wish for anything," Lila said truthfully. "I have everything I need right here." Later, as the celebration wound down, they made their way to the small hill outside town where two graves rested side by side. Lila placed her wedding bouquet between them, wildflowers for wild hearts that had finally found peace. "Thank you, Mama," she whispered to the stone-marked Martha Hart, "for showing me what love could be, even when life was hard." She paused at her father's grave, newer but already softening with time. "Rest easy, Papa. You found your way back at the end. That matters." Cole's hand found hers. Charlotte, sleepy against his shoulder. Together they walked back toward town, toward the ranch, toward home. The house was quiet when they arrived, Murphy having stayed in town with friends to give them privacy. Charlotte, exhausted from excitement, barely stirred as Cole carried her to bed. "Story," she mumbled. "Tomorrow, sweetheart," Lila promised, kissing her forehead. "Tonight, just sweet dreams." They stood in the doorway watching her sleep, this precious child who had brought them together. "No regrets?" Cole asked softly. "Only that it took so long to find you." He led her to the porch where they'd sat so many evenings, watching stars and building dreams. But tonight was different. Tonight, she was his wife, and he was her husband, and tomorrow stretched before them full of possibility. "Come with me," Cole said suddenly, standing and offering his hand just as he had that first day. But now the words carried different weight, not escape, but invitation, not desperation, but joy. Lila placed her hand in his without hesitation. "Always." He pulled her close, and they danced slowly on the porch with only stars for music. In the distance, a coyote called to its mate, and the desert whispered its ancient secrets. "I love you, Mrs. Wilder," Cole murmured against her hair. "And I love you, Mr. Wilder." They stayed there swaying gently, two hearts that had found their way home against all odds. The girl who'd been told she was worthless had become a beloved wife, mother, and benefactor. The man who'd thought his heart died with his first wife had discovered it could grow even larger. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. There would be foundation work to oversee, a ranch to run, a daughter to raise. The water system would need maintenance. And there would always be those who struggled as Lila once had, needing help and hope. But tonight, in the circle of Cole's arms, with Charlotte safe in her bed and the whole world spread before them like a promise, Lila knew the truth that no amount of gold could buy. Love wasn't about trading or owing, buying or selling. It was about choosing, again and again, to see the value in another person and reflect it back until they could see it too. It was about building something together that neither could create alone. The desert wind carried the scent of sage and possibility, and somewhere in the darkness, water flowed through channels that brought life to parched earth, just as Cole had brought life back to Lila's parched heart. And she to his. "Forever?" Cole asked, sealing the question with a kiss that promised eternity. "Forever," Lila confirmed, and meant it with every fiber of her being. The stars wheeled overhead, ancient witnesses to another love story written in the harsh and beautiful landscape of the American West, and in a ranch house filled with laughter and light. 3 hearts beat as one, proof that sometimes the greatest treasures weren't golden at all, but warm and living and worth more than all the riches beneath the earth. Their story was just beginning. Thank you so much for listening to this heartfelt Wild West love story. I'd love to know where in the world you're enjoying this tale. Please share in the comments below so we can connect and discuss your thoughts about Cole and Lila's journey. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Wild West Night for more authentic frontier romances. Give this video a like and hit the hype button to help more listeners discover this beautiful story of love, redemption, and second chances in the American West.